Manchester City 3, Manchester United 1. I'm joined by Stephen Howson. Talk to me about that game. Is it just a matter of golfing class, or did United play a system that was bound, to see us lose that?
I don't think we did play a system that was bound to see us lose it, because at the halfway point we were winning. And the vast majority of City's shots, I think maybe even more than 2/3 of City's shots came in the first half. I think their XG at half time was 2.73, and I think it only ended up 3.2. Like, the bulk of all of the chances they created, and us, was all in that first half. So no, I don't think it was inevitable that we were going to lose that game. Well, I think it probably was inevitable we was going to lose that game, but I don't think the system necessarily was one that was definitely what other system could we have played? I think that was the only chance we had was the puncher's chance, because we've got very, very quick players up front that, City's line is 10 yards into your half, as it was for that second chance Marcus had, which was probably the golden one. I think I wasn't giddy after the first. I was giddy with the goal, but I wasn't giddy with the scoreline at the time, because I thought I didn't think City would be nilled at home. So I always thought we would need a second to win it, at least. Ultimately, a second would have just been another consolation, wouldn't it? But no, I don't. To answer the question, I don't necessarily think that the way we were set up meant we were definitely going to lose. I think it was the only opportunity we would have had to win. And to also answer the first part of the question, yeah, and that's because of the golfing class.
So on that golfing class then, City had 27 shots, United had 3. I know that, United conceded a lot of shots, but do you think the golfing class is as big as what we saw today, or do you think there were issues on the pitch? Do you think there were problems there? 74% possession, like you said, 3.32 expected goals to United's 0.26. I know United aren't great, but we're still a team that's fighting for Europe this season, even up until maybe even today, fighting for the Champions League. How is the gap between 5th or 6th in the Premier League and 2nd or 3rd in the Premier League this massive? Is it players? Is it tactic? Like, do you understand what I mean? They were way, way better than us, and seemingly are every time we play them. How can it be such a big gap with so few places between us?
Right now, Joe, they're the best team in the world.
Right.
As much as that hurts to say, they are literally the best team in the world. City put more than 3 goals past teams that are in the Champions League. So let's not pretend that we are in some unique place by getting beat by them at the moment. They win a lot of football matches, and often they score a lot of goals in doing so. Why? Well, for starters, when they were taken over, they had owners that had ambition, that actually wanted to see things done. And they didn't actually mind whether it was done legit or not, by the sounds of things. They just wanted to see them successful. Ours wanted to mortgage us up to the hill and extract as much as they could out in dividends. And considering that we were taken over in 2005 and they were taken over in 2008, you could not have run 2 clubs as polar opposite as they've both been run in the last 19 years and whatever the fuck it is for them, 16 years since they've been owned. And the result is what you now see on the pitch. That is it. It is as simple as that. That the way both clubs have been operated for the last 16 and 19 years is the reason for the golfing class. Now, some people will say, well, what about Pep? Okay, cool, but Mancini and Pellegrini won a league there. And then Pellegrini couldn't fucking do nothing with West Ham, so it's probably a little bit more about the club than the manager, isn't it? And I think we would all agree, Manchester United, when buying and selling players in the last decade, have absolutely bumbled our way through it in the dark. We get rinsed when we're buying, we get rinsed when we're selling, we leave it till the last minute. Our way of identifying targets under Ten Hag has been whoever he's in a WhatsApp group with. And prior to that, it was whoever was fucking highly rated on FIFA or had loads of Instagram followers. And we can laugh about it, but like that's kind of what we've been doing. United haven't pulled a fucking gem out in how long? They don't seem to have the confidence to go and buy some random fucking Japanese second division player and actually he's really good. And I know we've got the scouting network to do that. So you've got to look at the executives and the way the club has been run and the values that they put in. Roman Abramovich put in the values of, if you don't win fucking everything, you're getting a sack. And he stuck to that for like 15, 16, 20 fucking years or whatever it was until he took his club off him. Manchester City have been like, tried to build a super club, albeit without a fan base, but they've tried to build a super club and actually a footballing network around the world. But everything seems to go and support them as the central club within that football group. It's called City Football Group, isn't it? Not called the fucking Girona Football Group. So that tells you what they've been trying to do, and what they've been trying to do is create themselves as a superpower. We've
done our best to take that title away from ourselves. Just in terms of personnel and players today then, Rashford's had a load of stick, and some of it rightly so, maybe some of it wrong. I mean, there's always some of it wrongly so because people sort of hate him for no reason a lot of time, but got the goal today. Do you see some positives there? Is there any positives in a game like this, or even when you get a goal, it's part of a bigger picture of a disastrous day and, you know, we just have to sort of move on to next week?
I don't think he played bad, but I don't think any of them with the ball played particularly well. Which is disappointing because, you know what, around about the 50-odd minute, we've probably all forgot about this now, but for like the 50-odd minute, United actually held possession in City's half and just had a really, really composed sort of keep ball, bit of a drill for a good few minutes. And we looked genuinely good. And I mean, not just good for United against City in this circumstance, but actually genuinely good, like better than we've looked against anybody this season in terms of like keeping the ball composed under pressure, moving it around, moving an opposition around for a little bit. And it makes you wonder, like, would it have been possible to play that for a more consistent sort of run within the game? Would it have been possible to actually hold possession in City's half at any point during the game? Because we didn't outside of that couple of minutes. But we also didn't really do anything in terms of chance creation in the second half either. Like, I know City didn't have quite as many, even though they scored all of their goals in that half. But United, we had fucking none, I don't think, in the second half.
We didn't even have a shot second half.
Was it literally none?
Literally none, as far as I'm aware, yeah. Do you think, I know obviously you can't put the golfing class, like you mentioned, of the last 18 and whatever it is, 16 and 18 years, you can't put that on Ten Hag because he's been here 18 months. But do you think maybe you sort of almost leading yourself to that question there of, could we have tried something slightly different today? Could we have had a different plan for the second half when he knows his thin team is going to, you know, get tired, and maybe that sort of constant defending and track him, you know, passing your man on, sprinting to the other side, the fatigue might start to set in. Do you think we could have adapted and tried to do something different second half to hold on to that lead a little bit better?
I mean, there's always a possibility that you can do something, but when you look at what was the minute that Johnny Evans went off?
I'll find out now.
I know he was on for Foden's goal because it goes right past him, doesn't it? So was he on for the first? Was he on for the second and third? Third he wouldn't have been, would he? But
John Evans came off in the 69th minute.
And what was the score then? 1-1?
Yeah, it was 1-1. Foden's goal was in the 56th minute.
There you go. We'd have won it with Johnny Evans still on the pitch. Prove me wrong.
I can't. Weirdly though, just back to that, what you said before, Phil Foden's goal came almost instantly after that spell of possession for Manchester United. Maybe that was almost proof that we couldn't really do it like that. The fact that we tried it and they instantly had space that they hadn't had all game, and then the goal goes in. It's just, you know, United didn't have any left backs, any strikers. We saw that exposed. We didn't have any shots, and their first goal came from that left back area.
You had no striker. You had no left back. So you're playing your left back out of position. You're playing a guy that didn't have a fucking club at the start of the season at centre half, who had a great game again, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, you're playing Varane, who's played a couple of games already this year, so he's clearly in need of a rest at some point. You're playing Casemiro, who is dropping 4 out of 10s at the moment all over the world. Who's actually weirdly one of our most composed players, but it is what it is. And then, you know, Garnacho, who's out of form, Rashford, who's out of form, Bruno, who's out of form. Where the fuck was you going to win that game? And then what you're bringing on the bench? Oh, Willy Kambala and Howson and Anthony, who's shite. Right. How are you winning that game? How it wasn't fucking 9-0 should be commended.
Just in terms of bigger picture then, is top 4 done? Is that it? Top 4 over, 11 points behind Villa now?
You would think so. But Villa have had a real wobble in the past where they could go on another skid, and you're kind of praying for that. If Villa go on a skid, you've got to be almost flawless to capitalise on that. Do I think we're capable of being almost flawless? I don't know if we've got enough players to put a team out next weekend. So I would have to say no. I would have to, and this is where it goes back to the conversation we was having on the podcast the other day. If you had a 4 or 5 hour meeting with Ineos, I don't know how you have a 4 or 5 hour meeting with them without discussing the circumstances in which you keep your job. Because it must have come up. They must have wanted to talk about it, and he definitely would have wanted to talk about it. It's like, do I need to extend the lease on my fucking flat or no? Like, there must have been a conversation which is like, yeah, do you know what? If you lose every single game, you're on your fucking ass, mate. But, and I don't know the answer to this. It literally could fall either side of this fence. I would presume that they've said to him, listen, this isn't on you, because that's the sort of noises they've been making publicly. And by them, I mean Jim Radcliffe, because he's the only one that talks. But the noises that have been coming out of Jim Radcliffe seem to admit that the problems do not lie in the manager. You know, he basically went, every manager's been working under a flawed system.
Yeah.
Well, that has to include the current manager, surely. You know, we've had we've had 2 managers that have won fucking Champions Leagues in the past. You know, both of them aren't that fucking bad. And Erik ten Hag had done a wonderful job with Ajax. He did a pretty good job last season. You know, this season's been chaos for various reasons. But you got to assume that when they sat down with him, I don't think you get to 4 or 5 hours deep sitting there wondering if I'm actually going to get the opportunity to have the keys to this car next year. So I'm leaning towards that they must have told him, listen, this is shit, but it's not all on you. You know, some of it I think is. I think some of the structure that we've seen. Where was all of that structure that we saw? Where was all of that getting people behind the ball and the shape all season? Because that's been the opposite of what United have been this season. Even though we still conceded a shitload of goals, City do that to everyone. But, you know, some of this is on him, some of this isn't on him. But I'm leaning towards that they could have or should have told him, here's who we think is responsible for this, you know, in whole or in part. You'll get another year. I think they're probably unable to do enough this summer where they would think that they could be in the running for a league if they had the right man. So I don't see any harm in allowing this lad another year with a few more signings to see if he can move it into the right direction. And if after that other year, they're seeing things start to improve around various parts of the club and they're not feeling the way he's playing, or we've still got these fucking big gaping holes in midfield, well, then I think the time would be right for them to appoint someone. I just don't want them to do it when there's fucking Gareth Southgate potentially out here looking for work and probably with a fucking European Championship under his fucking wing that he didn't win.
I think one thing that also that plays into Ten Hag's hands a little bit in this is if they're looking at building Man United to be a team that has a certain style of play that sort of transcends and you know, carries on regardless of the manager. I do think, admittedly, we've not seen enough of it. I think Ten Hag's overall principles of high pressing, attacking football is probably the sort of thing that they can buy players for now that will still work for the next manager as well. So I think that could easily buy him a year. Like, there's no obvious candidate that's way better, and you're probably not going to build a squad that's so different to who we're going to get next that we have to sell everyone again when you do go. Maybe that will get him another year. But I mean, it's isn't it a shame that we're having to sit here and say, yes, it's absolutely awful, as bad as it's pretty much been in terms of Premier League position that we've ever seen, but there's loads of reasons why it's shit. It's not just the manager. It's like there's loads of things to fix. Great.
Right, you are right. When you boil Ten Hag down to what we perceive as his fundamental principles, well, then his fundamental principles are high pressing, football on the floor, heavy rotations, generally quite attacking, play youngsters. Now, if you was to just do a blind wish list of managers that you would want, you know, he took an unfancied team quite far. He won a league title, retained a league title. These are all the sort of boxes that you would want ticking for your manager. Quite young, not just worked there, also worked at like Bayern Munich as well. So has got maybe like bigger European team pedigree, even though he wasn't the manager there. He was still been part of that setup. And yeah, you're right. Whether they bring in a sporting director, like it feels like modern football's all trying to go that way. It's not like we've got Tony Pulis and his fucking Tesco cap in the dugout right now. You know, it
or
isn't
even
like
Jose.
Someone, yeah, it isn't like, or Conte. It isn't like someone with a real mad style of play where you go. It's not like going from Moyes to Louis to Jose to Ole. Like it isn't that at the moment. Whoever you bring in probably will align with 6 out of the 7 principles that Erik ten Hag has got. So yeah, you're right. I think that probably does buy him at least another year.
Right. I mean, it's a shame we have to talk about the future of the manager after pretty much every game these days, but that's the situation that we're in. Thank you very much for coming on today. Manchester United have lost to Manchester City 3-1 in the derby. We'll see you in a bit.